Hello, my name is Marc Jeffrey, and you are listening to episode 7 of the Marc Jeffrey Podcast Show, brought to you by MPC Solutions. Thank you for joining me on what is now episode 7 of the Marc Jeffrey Podcast Show, recorded March the 23rd, 2017, from the studio on the Hill, Southwest UK, not a million miles from London. A podcast of my life through a lens aimed to inspire you, cheer you up in times of need, and possibly make you feel your life is ready for the next episode. Coming up in this episode, we will be talking about topics such as, why do we celebrate birthdays when in fact our lives are getting shorter by the minute? And if you came across a homeless person on the streets who was unconscious and in need of CPR, would you stop and help them out? We have music from this week's unsigned artists. They are this week the Ben Robey Band and also Mr. Medal. So we're on episode 7, and that is the crucial podcast. That is supposed to be the make or break of most podcasters. Now, apparently, so the likes of Cliff Ravenscraft, the podcast Answer Man, you've heard of him before, and many other podcasters say episode 7 is where a lot of podcasters get to where they run out of ideas, inspirations, and disappear into the void, never to be seen again. Well, the way I look at things is, if every day you do something different in your life, like I do, then you always have a story to tell. So I can pretty much guarantee that I have enough material now to keep me going for a while, fingers crossed. So how's your week been anyway, guys? I hope you've had a good one. I hope you've continued to make the most out of each day. On episode 1 and episode 2, I told you about my plans to push my life into a better direction for 2017. And I also talked about building a podcast, and that's what my plans for 2017, which I can tick off a checklist. I've done that. I also told you that I plan to spend more quality time with my family, which I try to do every single day. And I also told you that I wanted to spend more quality time with friends, all my friends that I haven't caught up with for such a long time. And it is that mission that I achieved this weekend. My brother moved up to Sunderland just before Christmas, the end of last year. And so I don't get a chance to see him as much as what I used to now, unfortunately. But he got on the blower to me the other day and he says, Mark, I'm coming down to Cornwall. Do you fancy meeting up for a few drinks and going out on the town where me and him grew up together, where my parents live? And my parents are living in a small town called Callington, and it's an old tin mining town situated on the side of Kit Hill in southeast Cornwall, United Kingdom, and it's about 7 miles north of the Cornish-Devon border. And it's quite a nice little town, population just shy of 6,000 people. And these people are also known as Caletonians. That's how they like to be called. So that's where my parents live. That's where me and my brother grew up as children, and that's where we decided to go out for a few beers on Saturday night. So we headed to the pub about 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, with the intention of catching up with a few friends before frequenting the local Chinese restaurant and returning home about 8 p.m. It kind of didn't happen. The beer was flowing so nicely. That we stayed out for a little bit longer, and there was just constant people streaming in the pub, people that I hadn't seen for such a long time. And before I knew it, me and my brother were stumbling home, socially confused, about midnight. But it felt so good. It felt good to catch up with those people that I haven't seen for such a long time. And if you was one of those people, may I add, currently listening, I'm sorry if I rabbited on a little bit. That was the alcohol talking. It most certainly wasn't me. Yeah, okay, Mark. Anyway, lots of people that I interacted with in the pub. They were talking to me about my radio show, the Monday Night Jukebox. 8 p.m, www.ncbradio.co.uk. Check it out. A little bit of a plug there. They congratulated me on my progress. They were saying, Mark, it's really coming on. We've seen you start at Eat Music and go on to NCB Radio, and we've seen the progress over the last 3 years, and it's really, really coming on. And it was there that I went on and started talking about podcasting to them. Telling old friends and some random strangers that were there with them that I had set up this podcast, and it was something that I wanted to do for a while, and I was currently on episode 6, and my viewing figures were increasing, and I was doing really, really well, and I was pleased with myself, and I was amazed at the response I got. The amount of people that I spoke to over the night that had never heard of a podcast. They were like, Mark, what's a podcast? And I'm sat in the pub, and I'm there like, come on, this is 2017. Podcasting's been going like for 13 years. And I was like, hello, how do you not know what a podcast is? Well, the likes of me, who's been doing radio presenting for 3 years now, I was sure that everybody out there was simply they knew what it was. But do you know what? They don't. Which leads me into some research that I stumbled across on Sunday, as I was a little bit hungover, just listening on my phone, and it was some research about podcasting, and if you guys at home are thinking about setting up a podcast, or you do a podcast, you're into podcasting, I think this might be of some interest to you. So listen up to this. I heard it on this week's Spreaker Live show, and that's presented by a chap called Rob Greenlee. And it was on episode 104, and the episode was called Minimal Viable Podcast and Podcasting. So get over there and check that out. And he was talking about this year's podcasting survey that was carried out over in America. They do a survey about podcasting every year over in America, and it, to tell us how it's increasing over in the States and all of that lot. Now, I know these are only statistics for America. It's not worldwide, but I think that you can listen to it and kind of get a bit of a gist, about podcasting in America, and how big America is, and you get a bit of a gist of it, don't you? Well, here we are. Here's some figures for you. Currently, out of 318 million people that populate the States, only 168 million people this year knew what a podcast was. 168 million people knew what a podcast was out of 318 million. And out of that American population, right, only 60% of those people, that's 60% out of the people that live in America knew what a podcast was. Out of that 60% of Americans that knew what a podcast was, only 40% of those people had ever listened to one. Right, so we'll break that down again. I'll quickly run through that again in case you didn't quite understand it. 318 million people over in the States, that is the population. Out of those 318 million people, only 168 million people knew what a podcast was. That is 60% of Americans know what a podcast is, which is kind of like, I was kind of expecting more than that. But out of those 60% of people that knew what a podcast was, only 40% had ever listened to one. Well, that was quite shocking, that. It's then what they went on to say that out of that 40% of people, only 24% had listened to one in the last month, right? So 40% of Americans, only 24% of Americans had listened to a podcast last month. Now, those figures I found to be kind of unbelievable. I couldn't get my head around that, All the time we as podcasters are being told that we're now at a time to set up a podcast. It's getting huge. Podcasting is massive. You need to get on board now. But at the same time, listening figures from platforms such as iTunes and YouTube prove that. But on the other hand, only 24% of Americans say that they've ever listened to a podcast in the last month. Amazing. So anyway, moving swiftly on, I don't want to rabbit on too much about it, but if you understand what I'm talking about, I think you'll find it quite interesting. 15% of Americans say that they listen weekly So, we're going on down the percentage of people now. Only 15% of Americans say that they listen on a weekly basis to a podcast. And on an average, out of those 15 people, they listen to, on average, 6 subscribed podcasts a week. 6. They then went on with some viewing figures about age, which quite simply confused me. As Rob was going on about these figures, they didn't quite make sense to me. I'll tell you the figures, and you can decide for yourself. They were going on about age brackets, right? So they were saying that from the age of 12 to 24-year-olds, only that there's 27% in that bracket listen to podcasts, right? And then they went on from the age of 25 to 54, 34% of people listen to podcasts, and then 55 plus, 12% listen to podcasts. So breaking it down, basically, what they're saying is the people in America that listen to podcasts, the average age is between 25 to 54 people, which is 31% of those people that listen to podcasts. Now, the reason why I didn't get that figure is because anybody that can do maths, and I'm not a mathematician or anything here, but that total comes to 70%. So who are the other 30% that are listening to podcasts? What age are they? Are they an alien? Are they living on a different planet? Oh, have they not been born yet? Are they listening inside the stomachs of their mothers? I'll leave you to decide that and work that out. They also said that out of the male and female bracket that listen to podcasters, 57% of those listeners are males. So just a few more males listen to podcasts than females. But they did conclude themselves, Rob and his co-presenter, they did consider that these figures didn't quite make sense to them. But the figures were drawn up by a podcast research group in America, and they did say that it wasn't them, and they didn't quite understand it themselves. So anyway, guys, I urge you to pop over to that episode and check that out. Pop over to Spreaker, check them out. It's a podcast I listen to weekly. And if you're learning about podcasts and wanting to set up a podcast, I can tell you guys it's a very, very beneficial podcast. Can I just say, me personally, I'm not a big podcast listener. I listen on average to 2 podcasts a week. That's the Cliff Ravenscraft, the podcast Answer Man. That's the one that I listen to, and the Spreaker live show. Those 2 there. That's the ones that I check out. So get on over there. It's the Spreaker live show presented by Rob Greenlee, and it gets launched every Wednesday. It goes out live, but I can't tell you what time it does go out live. You're going to have to get over there and do a bit of research on that one for yourselves. Anyway, I just thought I'd let you all know about that. Anybody that's interested in podcasts, and I found it quite interesting. Figures that didn't really, really make sense to me, but I was quite shocked. Right, it's time to introduce you to our first unsigned artist. It's the Ben Robey Band, and they are situated over in Devon in the UK. And this is what he sent me. He said, Mark, we are the Ben Robey Band. The Ben Robey Band delivers an authentic, polished sound. For almost 4 decades, Mike, he's the lead guitarist, has been mastering his technique and sound, which Ben knew would complement his work. Now, I think he meant Ben being the lead singer there. Ben Butters, the bassist, has been playing music venues since the age of 14, and now at the age of 22 has joined Ben and the band to add his own personal style to the rhythm selection. Steve on the drums and Ben met at a music diploma course back in 2010, where they also met Butters. Ben and Steve have played together for a few times, 2011 and now 2015. Ben was very delighted for Steve to agree to play full time with him, and the band would be nothing. He'd be nothing without his band. He went on to say, I can't read now. Sorry. He said, "I'm truly blessed to have worked with such gifted, dedicated musicians, and they are really, really good." So that's what he had to say, and I kind of understand what he was saying there. I hope you do. There's lots of Bens and different people's names is there. But I'm going to play you a song now that he sent in, and after that I will do my best to answer the question that he sent in. Stay tuned for that one.
stands at these cubs bite. Look at your papa, grow you're strong. It puts on a show all night long. The law knocks down every man. 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 Lord knows I'm a bear of a man.
So that was the outstanding Ben Robey Band and their single Bear of a Man. And if you'd like to check them out for more of their material, look them up on Facebook at the Ben Robey Band. And you can also follow them on their YouTube channel. And I'll put the link up to their show, well, put a link up to what they're all about on my show description, where you can find them. Now, Ben sent me our first question of the episode, and I must admit, I did have a chuckle to myself and thought, what an odd question. Where the heck did he dig that one out from? So I asked him at work this morning, because I actually work with Ben, and I asked him, Ben, where did you get that question from? And he simply replied, that's a sort of strange questions I ask myself all the time, Mark. So you guys at home, you want to know what the question is now, don't you? Well, here it is. He said, Mark, here's the question. Would you give a homeless person CPR if they were dying? Well, what a question. I asked myself, if I was walking through a city or even a small town and I saw a homeless person struggling and looking like he or she was in a bad way and needed CPR, would I help them? And the first reaction was yes, of course I would help them. They are a fellow human being. He or she perhaps has a family like myself. And if I could help save a life, then my morals and beliefs would always kick in. And yes, I would help. It wouldn't bother me that homeless person was possibly richer or poorer than me, colour or creed. It wouldn't bother me in the slightest. He or she is a fellow human being. But then the what ifs kicked in. They always do, don't they? What if he or she was putting an act on? They were in fact going to rob me of my belongings, or perhaps even worse, they were a crazy person that was going to pull a knife out on me and try to kill me. Well, sadly, that is the society that we're living in 2017, where you ask questions to your morals and beliefs. I'm now a father of two, as you're aware, two lovely boys. And what happens if something happened to me? Those two boys would go without a daddy. So that's something that all of a sudden changed my feelings. CPR has changed, may I add, from the days I was taught basic first aid in the Cub Scouts. I was taught you gave mouth to mouth while moving on to the chest compressions. That was what we was taught about 20, 30 years ago. But most workplaces that give out first aid courses, they train you very, very different now. And I just wanted to give you a short, brief description of what the NHS said. To carry out chest compressions, place the heel of your hand on the breastbone at the centre of the person's chest. Place your other hand on top of your first hand and interlock your fingers. Position yourself with your shoulders above your hands, using your body weight, not just your arms. Press straight down by 5 to 6 centimetres on their chest. Keeping your hands on their chest, release the compression and allow the chest to return to its original position. Repeat these compressions at a rate of 100 to 120 times per minute until the ambulance arrives on your first exhausted. Before the ambulance arrives or you become exhausted. Can't read my writing, I do apologise. When you call for an ambulance, telephone systems now exist that can give you basic life-saving instructions, including advice about CPR. These are now common and easily accessible with mobile phones. So no sign of mouth to mouth there. Simply pump the chest and call 999 and wait for the ambulance to call. So the answer to your question, Ben, is I'd have to be in a situation to be able, to ask that question. I'd have to be in that situation. And I hope that I never put in that position where I have to give CPR. But I do think that I would have to be in that position to answer that question. I'd like to think if a fellow human being was needing my help, I'd do my very, very best that I could. But I think you have to assess the situation at the time, where you are, who's around you. You have to assess the situation before you can make a decision. And you have to be thinking of yourself and the fellow people around you before you make that decision. That's the answer to my question. And I hope you guys found that one interesting. Perhaps you can get in contact with me, jaff10@hotmail.com, and tell me what you would do if you was in that situation when you had to give somebody CPR. Anyway, during the week, I received a Facebook message from a guy called Freddie Jacob, and he was from Tanzania. Well, it wasn't actually a message, but an audio message that he sent me over Facebook. So I opened it cautiously to what I may hear, and to my amazement, my ears were filled with some amazing sounds. Music that I must admit I have no previous knowledge of, but I liked it, and isn't that the main thing? It wasn't in English, and I haven't got a clue on the lyrics, but I straight away messaged him back, and he replied to me with a comment that was amazing. The comment that he sent back was as amazing as the song. He said, the name of the song is, now forgive me if I get this wrong, Kila Saya. It's a Swahili word meaning every time. And it's a romantic song explaining how my life partner is very important to me, and I wish she is by my side every time and every second. He told me his musical name was Mr. Medal, and the song was featuring J Deal and Jerry Latino. And before I play the song, you can find him at Mr. Medal via his YouTube channel, and also you can find him by the link that I'm going to put up for you to download if you require, and that will be listed on the show descriptions at the beginning of the show. So here is his song, Kia Saya. Check it out, and after that I have another very interesting question that I've got to answer.
Nimepatanishwa naye, nimepatanishwa naye. Oh, yeah. Napenda nikuone kila saa, wewe moyoni mwangu kama taa. Kitambo nimeshafika, nipende kupita kifani. Napenda nikuone kila saa, wewe moyoni mwangu kama taa. Kitambo nimeshafika, sababu tumetoka mbali. Maisha yangu ni wewe, kila kitu nafanya sababu ya wewe. Nimetuliza mabonge, niko na wewe zawadi, sasa nini baby go. Anyumba gari no, aswata ama flow, ushindi ama draw. Usinde mama jo, bado nazidi sakado. Niko tayari kufa juu yako.
Unavyonga, naifanya kicha, hasa unapozungusha bambata. Nangara kama taa, megiza ni bala, na vile unavojek, tani wanabwek. Tamani kuteka yo keke ya Mr. Mecca. No mana, sitamani mabisho mini zaidi yao.
Napenda nikuone kila saa, wewe moyoni mwangu kama taa. Kitambo nimeshafika, nipende kupita kifani. Napenda nikuone kila saa, wewe moyoni mwangu kama taa. Kitambo nimeshafika, sababu tumetoka mbali.
Bado niko matope ma, natafuta matonge upate nanana. Anytime mzigo utarampapa, pate shakama, I'm a bad man. Venye nimefall hii ndio sad line. Nipe makofi za kilo, kitani na waona wengi ila zero. Na iyo peremende ficha, kuna mende wameanza toa kucha. Ahuda man, back to the man.
Napenda nikuone kila saa, wewe moyoni mwangu kama taa. Kitambo nimeshafika, nipende kupita kifani. Napenda nikuone kila saa, wewe moyoni mwangu kama taa. nishafika sababu tumetoka mbali.
Nitamani mabisho mini zaidi yao, wale machizi wenye nyodo mindo boss wao, natunza salari zao.
There you go. I hope he was as blown away to that one as I was during the week. It is Kilasar by Mr. Metal featuring J Deal and Jerry Latino. And like I said, you can catch more of the material on the Mr. Metal YouTube channel. And I will also put a link up to the song you've just heard if you fancy downloading it. Now, Mr. Metal also asked me a question that quite simply blew me away for once. I didn't have an answer for it. So Mr. Metal said, my biggest question has always been, why do people celebrate birthdays every year while it seems more like closing to an end? Well, quite a good question. And what did I have to say? Well, me personally, Mr. Marc Jeffrey, I have no religious views flowing through my veins at all. Even though I'm a Christian by birth, I have no religious views. I kind of think life doesn't owe you anything. You get out of life what you put in. And as I've said, I have a beautiful family, and every day I spend with them, no matter how hard it may be at times, is only ever a bonus. So my life is getting shorter, I know that. Should I look at that in a sad way? Well, no. You know, I cherish every day and celebrate every day that I'm on this planet. And, you never know what's around the corner, do you? So every birthday to me, personally, is a celebration of my life. This year it's my 40th birthday. Hopefully I live another 40 years to tell the tale. And hopefully I make another year, another week, another day. And fingers crossed I live another week to be able to share episode 8 with you. And I'd like to end that episode by thanking this week's unsigned artists. Don't forget to check them out for more of their work. You can get their details off my show description. Check me out on my webpage, www.jaff10.simplesite.com. My Twitter account is @MrJaff10, or send me some feedback via my email, jaff10@hotmail.com. You can catch me on the Marc Jeffrey Show, /Libsyn.com, and we are on iTunes, YouTube, and now we are on Mixcloud, so check us out. Until next time, I leave you with this thought. Stay positive and happy in everything you do, and remember, your life isn't as strange as you once thought it was.